Hello everyone, I'm GarethMax974 today and welcome to my thoughts and opinions on Half-Life Alyx without using VR or motion controls. Now I know a lot of you might be thinking, well this is just going to be like the Valve News Network video where essentially you play Half-Life Alyx like Half-Life 2 using Half-Life 2 weapons and all that by accessing an early development build of the game that you can't really access now. But this actually isn't the case whatsoever. What I'm talking about is actually playing the game without the need of having a VR headset or motion controls. So I was able to do a playthrough of Half-Life Alyx thanks to R57 Zone on GitHub, who actually was kind enough to link my playthrough of the game on his GitHub page, so big ups. And so this is going to be just like a review, I guess, of what my experience with Half-Life Alyx was, what I disliked most actually, and also some redeeming factors. Now, of course, one big question is why in the holy mother of ass would you even consider doing this in the first place? And I guess the big reason is if you're a Half-Life fan and you don't want to get spoiled on the story. I know that's a pretty big deal. I never wanted to get spoiled on anything that happened in the game. I just wanted to play it, enjoy it for what it was, and go on from there, and then see all the videos about, you know, the ending or whatever, theories about that, or, you know, just even hovering over a YouTube video and seeing the video play. You know, I wouldn't even contemplate doing that. But I think I might have got a little bit spoiled based off of videos I saw. But, you know, it's only a tiny little bit, and, you know, it is what it is at the end of the day. But, that would be one big reason why I'd want to do this. And another one, in my case, I actually have, well, my brother actually has a PSVR. So, it's a little bit superfluous to buy a PC VR headset when we have a perfectly working PSVR headset. So, it's just like a waste of money, essentially. But it doesn't look like Half-Life Alyx is coming to PSVR anytime soon, so that is why I chose to go down the route of not using VR but trying to bypass it essentially. So let's get into what I think. Well, on an overall level it's pretty good. The game is pretty good, that's why. But as I'm going to get into, there are some pretty bullshit bits. One bit that I'm not really going to cover is actually being able to fire combine energy balls right at the end of the game, by the way. This is before you get to the amazing ending that the game has to offer. It is really awkward to do. Apparently you're just supposed to like tap the button a couple of times or hold it a little bit, and it's very inconsistent. I mean, sometimes I would just move the mouse a little bit and it would just fire both energy balls I had. And other times I'd just mash the button and it just would not do anything. So I would say that is a pretty pain in the ass bit. But, you know, once you get the knack of it, I guess, then you'll just be able to do it. And one of the big things for me as well was actually figuring out how to reload the pistol right at the start of the game. Mostly because there's no real indication, no method in the R57 Zone's guide on how to actually do it. I actually ended up going to one of his videos, and right at the end of one of them, like one of the introductory videos he did on this subject was going over the button combination of how to reload, and you wouldn't believe it if I told you. I swear to God, it's so overcomplicated and ludicrous that you'd think I'm bullshitting you, but I'm not. So it's something like you have to hold /, right? Then you have to hold right shift, that like grabs. You gotta let go of / while still holding right shift. Then you should see your pistol magazine in your hand. Then while holding right shift you gotta hold right mouse button. Then you have to move the pistol magazine into the bottom of the pistol, and that loads the magazine into the pistol. But then you're not done yet, because then you need to press numpad /stop to be able to chamber a round into the gun. And of course I missed out the first step, which is actually pressing numpad 0. So it's, yeah, I kind of messed up the tutorial, but that is essentially how you reload the pistol, and get used to it, because that's how you have to reload it without VR. I'm sure with VR it's way easier, but without it, it's not as simple as just pressing R and it does it for you, sadly. So that is complicated to say the least. That was like the first battle scene of the game, and it's like, yeah, how do I reload the pistol? And it's like, no, I don't know how to do it. So actually what ended up happening as well, in my opinion, well, not in my opinion, what happened in facts is I ended up taking 10 accidental screenshots on my first playthrough, and out of these 10 screenshots that I ended up taking, 7 of them were in the first 2 chapters of the game. So that would explain why in my game time it would say something like, oh yeah, you played 3 hours already and you're not even at chapter 2 or 3 of the game yet, just because it's... I instinctively want to use WASD to move, but something in Steam VR, like if you press S it does a screenshot, and then it just crashed the headset view for me, because what you have to do is use the headset view, and that allows you to move the mouse and that. So unfortunately when doing that I'd be like, okay, you've got to use the arrow keys to move, but then I'd think, okay, so this is PC, I'm going to WASD, and then crash the game, got to force close Steam VR, load it up again, and you know, it takes a long time to load, even on my gaming PC, which I think is pretty good, with a SSD in it as well. Well, it's actually installed onto an external hard drive, actually, but the main operating system's an SSD, and even with that, it takes a really long time for stuff to load, in my opinion. So, again, maybe I was recording it as well, but actually that was the second playthrough. The first playthrough, it still took a long time for stuff to load. So that's that. And another bit that's a pain in the ass, I guess, was being able to throw grenades, because I think what it does is it just throws the grenades in a plane in front of you. So there's no way you can actually sort of angle your shots to, you know, get them where you want them to. So honestly, I would have said at the time, why not have like an indicator for the grenade so you know where it's going? Like in PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, because I know from, you know, experience in that game, if you throw a grenade, it gives you a trajectory of where the grenade's going. But, of course, it's probably not realistic to implement something like that, and because, you know, Half-Life Alyx was meant to be played in VR, complaining about playing it without VR kind of makes that a null point. But, the grenade launcher mod that you get for the shotgun by using the fabricator and resin kind of does what I want it to, where you actually see the trajectory of the grenade, so that's actually like a step in the right direction in my opinion. But it is a weapon mod for the shotgun, which comes in about the middle of the game onwards, I would say. You do get the shotgun close to the start, but then you gotta get the resin and upgrade it and all that. So another thing as well was using the cells. So essentially the cells are in your wrists, so you can store items like antlion grubs or health syringes and stuff like that, to be able to take them to where you need to go to without actually carrying onto them. And yeah, I didn't know how to use them until, you know, much experimentation. Like I think I couldn't get them in the left cell, and I think I figured it out by accident, and I just didn't know how. So it's like, okay, well, how do I do this? Oh, you gotta like press right mouse button and move your hand just over to your left arm, and then then you press like right shift and it grabs it. Doing the right hand cell is easy enough, because you just press a button and you do it. But it's the left hand cell. I mean the left hand cell, right? The left hand cell's a pain in the ass one to sort out, but the right hand cell's easy enough. But again, it's not as easy as you might think. So at this point, I'm going to say, how long do you think it took me to play through Half-Life Alyx for the first time? I'll leave you a couple seconds to take a guess at this, right? Only 21 hours. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. It took me 21 hours to get through Half-Life Alyx on my first playthrough. Now, this is the non-recorded playthrough. The recorded playthrough I did on YouTube is actually way shorter than that, because I had an idea of what to do, and I cut out a lot of the fails and loading screens and stuff like that. But on the very first playthrough I did, yeah, 21 hours of playtime, according to Steam, is how long it took me to get through the entire game. And all I can really say after the 21 hours is there were some things that are utter bullshit to do without VR, but I am actually kind of excited to see where Valve is going to take Half-Life after this. And I know at this moment in time, people are really looking into stuff like Half-Life 2 Episode 4, the Return to Ravenholm expansion, or episodic game to Half-Life 2 that just never happened. So that could be interesting, I guess, but you know, you gotta get through like Half-Life 3, Half-Life 2 Episode 3 first for that, sadly. I guess, maybe, who knows. But I'm gonna, at this stage, go over what I think the 6 worst things in Half-Life Alyx to do without VR are. And I choose 6 because I had a channel called TIS Reloaded, and I would have done like 6 moments of playthroughs of mine or whatever, so I'm keeping up the idea of doing 6 of something. But number 6 on the list is actually freeing the Vortigaunt in the Northern Star chapter, right at the end of it, I guess. For that you have to sort of rotate a lever into position, and you actually pull up a switch and you gotta shoot with your other hand at like some glass to blow a cable out, and you free the Vortigaunt by doing that. It's kind of awkward to do, but you know, I just got away with just like blind firing the SMG, because you get the SMG at that point. Yeah, so I got away with just blind firing the SMG at it, and it kind of works. But rotating the controller is kind of awkward, and I'll get to a bit where you need to do that later on in this list, because it is a pain in the ass to do. Number 5 is getting the shotgun in the Is or Will Be chapter, I think it is. Essentially, it's one where you have a bicycle wheel and you have to sort of, you know, rotate it into position and thread a pipe through the spokes of the bicycle wheel to lock it into place, to then be able to grab a shotgun off a zombie who has it like held tight. And trying to hold on to this bicycle wheel and thread a pipe through is really, really difficult to do without VR. Mostly because I couldn't seem to be able to lock a controller into place. Like, apparently you're supposed to be able to do it according to R57 Zone, but I could never do it. So trying to thread that pipe through is a pain in the ass to do. So unfortunately that was a piece of shit bit, if you ask me. But after much struggling with it, you'll get it done eventually. Number 4, in my opinion, would actually be the Strider battle right before you get into the vault. In my recorded playthrough, I didn't have much trouble with this, but the first time playing it, I had a lot of trouble, and I actually ended up cheating, in quotes, to get the gnome achievement in the game, by pretty much spawning in a gnome model right before you go into the vault, and it counts for the achievement. So if you want to cheat to do it, then there's a pointer in how to do it. But yeah, it's a pain in the ass to do, and somehow I managed to get through it relatively easily in my recorded playthrough. And the only advice I could really give is just trying to get yourself into a rhythm where you just get the Strider in one place and you just constantly chamber around back and forth, and it just constantly fires an explosive round at the Strider, and you just do massive damage and it dies. But you know, it's one of those things, it's a pain in the ass to do, and I can understand why people hate it. I know I do, after, you know, failing 2 times and kind of succeeding 1 time. But yeah. Number 3 on the list is the rotating laser ball puzzle. I swear to God, I would put this high up on the list because I fucking hate this puzzle with a fiery passion. But because this is part of the Fabricator puzzles, and the Fabricator is purely optional in the game, you don't actually have to use the Fabricator. It's just one of those things where it helps you get weapon upgrades and that. It's still one of those things that when you're doing it later on in the game, they throw more challenging puzzles at you, and trying to be able to rotate this ball in position is such a pain in the ass to do. And I often find myself wanting to rotate the ball in one direction, and Alyx just does it in the complete opposite direction, and it ruins what I'm trying to do. So then I end up, you know, spinning the ball all over the place, and it's just so frustrating to do. Yeah, that is a bit that I really hate. Going on to number 2, it's actually opening the vault after dealing with Jeff in the Jeff chapter. The Jeff chapter's pretty good, but opening the vault at the end of it is a complete pain in the ass, let me tell you. So the essentials of it is, you pull a lever down, you have to pull some handle out, rotate it, put it into place. That opens up another handle that you pull out, rotate, put it into place. And then you pull a lever down, and you have to do it all in a time limit, and that opens up this hatch that allows you to progress onto the next section of the game. and it is one of those things where it is just painful to do. The only advice I can really give to get past it is backspace, because the backspace key seems to do something with the rotation, and if you get yourself in the right spot, you can just do the rotating bit in pretty much one swoop, and that's easy enough. But it is bad, It's, I think R57 Zone said it's probably one of the worst bits of the game to do, but I don't think it is one of the worst bits of the game to do, because that's only number 2 out of 6 on the list. Because number 1 on the list, and unsurprisingly for anyone who's watched my playthrough of Half-Life Alyx would understand, that it's actually the Trip Mine Diffusal Room. Yes, the obligatory Half-Life death trap room of exploding barrels. Half-Life 1 did it, and Half-Life 2 Episode 1 did it. Now Half-Life Alyx has to do it. And it's one of those where if you trigger a trip mine accidentally or purposefully, it blows up a whole bunch of explosive barrels and you die instantly. And you have to defuse 5 mines, and honestly, defusing the mines is a real bitch to do without VR, and the main problem with it is that you just don't have the proper perspective to do it. So that's why some people would criticise people who want to play Half-Life Alyx without VR. It's just that you lose some dimensionality in playing the game. And I totally understand why, because I guarantee if you had VR playing Half-Life Alyx, you could at least lean over the trip mine and see what you need to do with the multi-tool to defuse the trip mine properly. But without VR, you don't have that luxury, so it's well, do I move the multi-tool out away from me or towards me? There's no way to know, because you can't tell the proper perspective properly. So it's a real bitch to do. And in my recorded playthrough, I think I got away with actually breaking a box and it despawned a mine or something, so I got lucky there. But it's one of those things where I didn't even record the game audio in that part of the playthrough that I did, but because of that bit being in that chapter, I didn't re-record that playthrough part, because that bit is such a piece of shit that I never wanted to play it ever again without VR. So that is my number 1 worst moment in Half-Life Alyx. That took all the fun out of the game for me. It was a pain in the ass bit. Opening the vault after Jeff took all the fun out of the game for me at that point. Getting past the bullshit bit, but I say it's bullshit because I'm playing without VR when you're supposed to be playing with VR, So a lot of these bullshit points I'm calling out are probably null points, because I'm playing without VR when you're supposed to play with VR. So anyway, redeeming factors in my opinion that warrants people that should play Half-Life Alyx if they don't have access to a PC VR headset or have a console-based VR headset. One thing I'd say, the environments are beautiful. Looking at all the buildings, all the detail, all the locations and that, it looks stunning. It's gorgeous. Playing it at 4K 60 quality, at pretty much max settings I think, it looked great. Trust me, it looks awesome. And of course, gotta mention the ending. Not gonna say anything about it, but the ending is fucking stellar. It's amazing. So it's definitely worth playing the game for 21 hours in my opinion to see that and get that experience of playing it. Seeing it is one thing, but being there to play it is something entirely, out of this world. Quite even literally. And of course, it's definitely worth 21 hours of busting your balls and shit like that, just to be able to see it. But it's one of those things where I think it raises more questions than answers, and I don't know if people necessarily have the answers. But it is what it is at the end of the day, and it kind of loops back to the point that I said earlier about that I'm kind of excited to see where Valve takes this. Whether they're going to go down the Half-Life 2 Episode 3 route or the Ravenholm route, because stuff like that's coming out at this moment in time, because that was a cut project. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything that I had in mind about Half-Life Alyx. So I hope you enjoyed me pretty much rambling for 20 minutes about Half-Life Alyx without VR. You can check my playthrough out on this channel. You can check out R57 Zone's GitHub page about playing this without VR and follow the instructions there. And I hope you enjoyed me rambling about nothingness, I guess. So thank you for watching, take care, have a great day, peace out, and see you later.